So, guys, I gotta tell you something. You guys are really letting me down here. It's like 4 of you or 5 of you watching this video. Jeez Louise. I mean, my views are so down. They're like terrible. Absolutely terrible. Now, my self-worth and my ego depends on how many views I get on my videos. What's the point of doing this unless people are watching me? So, from now on, I want you to share all my videos. I want you to like it several times. I want you to start some dummy accounts, like them again. I want you to view it multiple times because, you know what, my ego requires lots of views on my videos. And if you don't do that, then I won't be happy. And don't you want me to be happy? Come on. Jeez, you're so selfish. Give me happiness. Feed my ego. Do it now. So, Buddhism. Buddhism. This is Normie Gardner. This is the second video in my series on religion. The first video I did was on Hinduism, and really you should watch that video first. But if you want to watch this video, that's fine too, because Buddhism is very closely related to Hinduism. In fact, they're in the what you might call the same family. They have a sort of the same relationship as Judaism and Christianity have. They both grew out of the same assumptions, and they're closely related. Buddhism, as far as I can tell, makes the same assumptions about the universe that Hinduism does. It assumes that that the world is an illusion; it's part of God. That that reincarnation happens. It definitely assumes that. That our what we call our souls or our individuality are just an illusion. Basically, our Atman, not the same as soul, goes from one body to the next, and we are just another iteration of the Atman, which is really just a part of Brahman, the underlying reality that is the foundation of everything. That the physical world is just a vapor, an illusion that's brought up by us, and it's not really important. The only thing that's really important is Brahman, and that the only thing that really follows us around is our karma. And if we have bad karma, well, that'll be visited on us by putting our Atman in a different body after we die, which is going to be a worse body and under worse circumstances. So, Buddhism was founded, unlike Hinduism, Buddhism was founded by an actual person, a very good person. This is the first thing you want to know about Buddhism, is that it seems to produce good people, which is great. I love Buddhism. I mean, we need more good people in the world. And I've experienced this personally very recently, because when I first started my YouTube quote-unquote career, it's a very small career so far anyway, I was on a stream with a YouTuber called Mouthy Buddha. This guy is such a nice guy. I'm serious when I say this. He was a very, very kind and generous person, and I was a stranger to him, and he treated me very nicely. Liked some of the tweets I had. He, gave me attention when no one else would. And even though he's a big YouTuber and I'm just, a guy with 5 views per video, treated a great guy. Now, I am assuming, even though he is an atheist, that he follows the teachings of Buddha, and hence the name. And if he does, well, good for Buddhism, because that guy is a really nice guy. Buddhism was founded by Buddha, for obvious reasons. And this is a man who took for granted the assumptions of Hinduism, that we all are reincarnated over and over and over again. And he did not like that fact. He never questioned that fact, but he did not like it. He did not like the fact that we're forever being in the same cycle over and over again. Now, even if you don't believe in reincarnation, there is a sense that our lives and our history is just a cycle over and over again, and we're not really making any progress. Because Hinduism and the Atman is sort of a closed system. Like, after you die, this is again another difference between Hinduism and the West. Whether you're a Christian or an atheist, you assume that after you die, something changes. Either if you're a Christian or a Jew, you go to heaven or go to hell. If you're an atheist, you go to nothing. But for Hindus, you go to another body over and over again. Cycle. And even if you don't believe in that, you can see how history is a cycle as well. I mean, history is like just the same thing over and over again. We don't ever improve. We improve a little bit, then we fall back down to crap again. You know, I mean, just think of the history in the broad sense. I mean, like, look at the history of the 20th century. At the beginning of the 19th century, things looked pretty good. And then we had the World War II and World War, you know, like, and then communism, and horrible things happened again. And now we see communism ended and we're good again. And all of a sudden now we have, like, you know, the whole Islamic terrorism thing and the alt-right and all the crazy stuff that's going on right now. Like, it seems like humankind is just broken, and we just keep on doing the same horrible things over and over again. Buddhism resonates with that fact. Buddhism tries to answer that fact. So, Buddhism, unlike Hinduism, seems to be intensely personal. Hinduism, I get the impression, from what I can see, that they don't really care that much about the individual. After all, the individual isn't real, just another part of Brahman. Buddhism tries to answer the question, why does the individual suffer? How can we get out of suffering? Like, we don't like suffering. And the Buddha seems to really have cared very deeply about this fact. So the Buddha was a rich man, a prince. He renounced everything. He tried to figure out why we suffer. He sat under, I think it was like, the story is, I'm gonna get this wrong, guys, but he sat for many years under a tree, and then suddenly he reached enlightenment. He discovered something. He like, eureka! He stumbled upon a fact that the cause of suffering is desire. The cause of suffering is desire, and also the cause of suffering is that you think that yourself is real. Remember, Buddhism assumes the view of Hinduism that the self is not real. And we have to get rid of those two things, desire and the sense of self, and that will end our suffering. And if you get rid of those things, then the worst things in the world won't hurt you, won't cause you any pain. So, now the Buddha himself seemed to care very deeply about his followers, and he inspired great love, and to the point that his followers almost divinized him, in a sense. I mean, not really in the sense, but they see him as like a higher being. They have statues of Buddha, and basically the idea of Buddhism is to get rid of all your desires, like get rid of all of them. They're all bad. All desire is bad, whether it's desire for good things or not. Desire for, you know, happiness and friendship, those are also bad, also need to be gotten rid of. And get rid of the idea that yourself is important, like annihilate the self. And when that happens, you will reach a state that's called Nirvana, where you basically reach a state of higher consciousness where you can, where it's hard to describe, it's not really easy to understand, and I don't think, the idea of it is that you can't really comprehend it until you've reached this state. So, in a way, it's like the concept of eternity, which, if you think you understand what eternity is, you don't, because no one does. It's not living forever. If you're interested in that topic, look at my video I have about time. We Are Being Buried Alive, I think it's called. So, basically, Nirvana is, I guess, the equivalent, you would say, sort of heaven, but you reach it yourself. Buddhism seems to be very much about self-improvement and about getting to that perfect state where you don't desire anything, you don't regard yourself very well. Now, when you look at Buddhism and you're a Westerner, the idea might sound very, very strange. Like the idea that all desire is bad, very strange. The idea that yourself doesn't exist, also very strange. And you might regard anyone who adheres to Buddhism to be sort of a weirdo, you know, sort of like, okay, this guy's just a weird, esoteric, stoner, you know, hippie, whatever. But here's the thing that I want to make clear. Buddhism, when it's really sincerely practiced, does seem to produce really awesome people. I mean, a Catholic would call them saintly people, like people that seem to be very humble and to be very, like, nice is not the right word, but just seems to be without any self-regard. Because honestly, ego is ugly. We don't like it in ourselves. We don't like it in others, and we don't notice it in ourselves. You know, the little skit I did at the beginning of this video, I was joking, but it is real. It does bother me that I don't have a lot of views right now. It does bother me very much because I love being noticed. I mean, I always have. That's why I became a musician. Also, I'm good at it. Like, I've always wanted to be on the center stage, and the fact that my videos have like 5 views, 10 views, really bothers me. But here's the thing. I know that I'm old enough to know that that even if my videos had 1 million views, it still would bother me that it didn't have 2 million views, because I know myself and my own crap very well at this point. But I still have this emotional, like, oh man, I need more views. It really bothers me. I find myself checking my YouTube views over and over again. Buddhism would help me. Buddhism would tell me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it really doesn't. Who cares? You know? I mean, look at the big picture. This desire is ravenous. This desire is causing me unhappiness, is causing me to neglect my work and my family. I would stop what I was doing and check my YouTube views. For what? And it's just, but I have this deep desire to be noticed and to be loved. And that's my desire. Your desire might be something different. It might be, you know, to be left alone. It might be to have lots of money, to have lots of power. Whatever it is, it's never going to give you happiness. That's what Buddhism teaches. Like, this desire is always bad. Now, the other idea of like the loss of self. I mean, for me, when I meet really good Buddhists, they kind of remind me of what I've heard about Saint Francis. Like basically, or stories about the saints where like they're very, very nice, they're very humble, they always care about you, you know, they don't care about themselves. You can, like, this self, what we would call humility in the West. Seems like Buddhists are very humble. So, and it comes from their idea that the self is not important. Now, I want to just draw a distinction here, because it seems very weird to us, whether we're Christian or atheist, to say the self doesn't exist. We really think the self does exist. I mean, even if you don't think that intellectually, it's an assumption that you make. But Buddhists say, no, self does not exist. You know, it's just part of Brahman. So, you may not agree with that, but the effects of it are actually very good. When you stop worrying about yourself, you start being a better person, you know? It's very refreshing and very nice. So Buddhism seems to be, see, it is a religion, and it is a belief system, and there's things that, it's not like the same as Hinduism, but it's, I got the feeling that if we were to put this whole dynamic in the context of Western religions, which I'm going to talk about in other videos, like Buddhism would almost be like an outcrop of Hinduism, just like, you know, I don't know, Protestantism is an outcrop of Christianity, or, you know, like Mormonism is an outcrop of Christianity, and so on and so forth. Like, they're very closely related, and yeah, they are different religions, but one thing, I get the impression that a lot of people think that Buddhism is atheistic, like it has no God. I don't see how that's really true. I mean, like, Buddhism is all built, the reason the Buddha started on his journey was to escape the cycle of reincarnation. And I forgot to mention that, like, that once you reach Nirvana, you get out of the reincarnation cycle and you're on a higher plane. So I'm not sure how this is atheistic, because the reincarnation, the whole thing is based on the idea of Brahman, God. It's not based on the idea that there is no God. Now, that being said, I suppose, you know, if you're an atheist, you can take the ideas of Buddha, I know you can actually, and use them, because you can take the self-improvement and use it. I mean, and to improve yourself, and that's great. I don't have any objection to that at all. I just don't quite think it's fair to call Buddhism itself atheistic or doesn't need any God, because, I mean, the underlying structure of Hinduism, as far as I can tell, is still there. Buddhism builds on Hinduism. It doesn't reject it. It doesn't reject the idea of Brahman, which is God. So, yeah, that's my take on Buddhism. Hopefully it's an interesting one. If you like this video, please subscribe to it. Please give it a like, give it a share. Thanks a lot. I'll talk to you later.